Hey scrappers, if you're looking to figure out what materials you should sell this week or hold this week, now is the time to do it. Our weekly report is going to give you that information, up-to-date market news, pricing. Let's get right into it and we'll talk about it inside. Hey scrappers, Tom here from the iScrap app and Rockaway Recycling, and today is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, and as President Trump has labeled it, it is Liberation Day, and we will find out at 4 o'clock what's going on with the tariffs, and that's going to be a big topic, in every single report that we're going to have. So you're going to ask questions, and we are live. It's 1 p.m. Eastern on April 2nd. So if you do have a question, please ask away. We have a few questions that we're going to be getting to, but these tariffs are definitely going to be changing things. It's going to be interesting because, I talked about this last week and the week before. COMEX prices and the London Metal Exchange, these copper numbers are off. And when you have the numbers off like that, it really makes it difficult for traders. And I know a lot of scrappers don't want to hear that. They don't really care, but it is a problem. It is a problem, and it's something that we're really looking at and actively trying to figure out. But this afternoon is going to really give a lot of clarity. And if you want to read some more of my ideas on the tariffs, our weekly report, the actual text itself has that in there. I do think that we're going to see short-term pain, but I do believe in the 18 to 24-month window, right? 2 years from now, I think that you're going to see the manufacturing coming back. You're going to see the jobs increasing. You're going to see the metal inside of the country on a loop that's going to be a lot more solid. So that'll be really good. Was that from 2 weeks ago? I'm wearing the same shirt. That's so funny.
No, it's you live.
Oh, it wasn't. Oh, this is me live. Oh, sorry. I got distracted. It's a little in there. So this week over week, copper prices, we'll go right into it. Traders have huge problems with the market. They don't know where to go. We've seen copper prices dropping 20 cents per pound. I don't think that we're going to see a quick resurgence of that. But again, I talked to 7 different traders yesterday afternoon. I sent the same question and I said, what do you think is going to be happening? Good case scenario, bad case scenario when it comes to the tariff announcements tomorrow afternoon. Everyone said it's a complete crapshoot. You could see prices go up exponentially. You could have already seen the market bake these prices in over the last month and a half. You could see the markets drop down by 10%. It all depends on what they are, how they're going to be put into effect. Because, if you're looking at things like cars, you're seeing a 25% tariff on cars and parts for cars. Those are going to start to hit, right? Automakers can only absorb so much of that impact before they pass it on to consumers. So I do think that for a period of time, kind of like what we saw during 2022 when the gas prices took a huge price upward after the Ukrainian invasion by Russia. After that happened, June 2022, those prices went through the roof. Yes, they started to come down, but it was artificially coming down. And right now we're going to be looking at these a little differently because these aren't gas and oil prices. These are going to be tariff, which is trade driven. And that is going to be able to really affect things. Question. That cool guy, 131. Why is there such a price difference in material from the East Coast and the West Coast to the Southwest? Ports, shipping lanes, much easier to ship things out on the water, gives you a lot more options. East Coast, you're able to ship, over to India. West Coast, you can ship over to China. Southwest, you're kind of landlocked there. You could ship into Mexico, but it doesn't give you as many options. So your transportation costs increase. Hopefully what we'll see in the next few years is oil and gas prices decreasing, which will lead to transportation decreasing, which will lead to increased scrap prices. That's part of the bigger macro picture. Great question. But when I'm looking at copper, let's just talk about some of these things, right? This is direct from investing.com. Citibank expects the U.S. to impose 25% Section 232 tariffs on copper imports, potentially starting as early as May 2025, with the announcement this afternoon. Copper prices are forecasted to average 8,800 a ton in the second half of 2025. Well, today we have copper prices around 10,800 a ton. So if we're going from 10,800 to 8,800, that's a 25% reduction in price. So if you're asking me, Tom, what should I do with my metals? Sell, 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 sell. I think like 3 or 4 months in a row, I've had a sell recommendation for copper. We may see a second half of the year having a little bit of a lag because sure, we want manufacturing to come back to the United States, but you can't just turn a lever or flip a switch and have factories built, workers in them, and metal already going. You need to build the factories, hire the workers, get the equipment in there for the workers to use. That's a lot of time. And there's only so many companies in the country that can go and build on that scale. And if they're already building for other warehouses, whether it's Amazon or any of these big logistical centers, you're going to need to be able to put that together. And sure, we've seen almost $4 trillion announced in the last 2.5 months going into the U.S. infrastructure investment, right? But that money hasn't started to flow. Those buildings haven't started to be, constructed. So these are all things that are going to take time. And copper prices are going to be affected by them. We just don't know where they're going to be. But if we can create that more of a closed loop inside of the United States, that's going to be a really positive idea and a really positive long-term direction. In fact, I just got off the phone about an hour ago talking with a lithium battery recycler, and they told me that 92% of the lithium batteries are exported from the United States and over into China, where they then recycle them to get the lithium black mass out, copper, steel, and aluminum. 92% is being exported. Well, how can more of that stay in the country? We're trying to get more of that material in the country, which is what they're working on inside of some of these tariffs. But you are going to have problems coming up in certain materials, aluminum and steel. We've seen heavy tariffs imposed, 25% on our neighbors to the north and to the south of the United States. And these are going to continue to hit, as we go on. We're going to see these tariffs hitting. And again, do I think we're going to see price increases? Yeah, I do. I think things are going to cost more for the next 6 to 12 months. But then they're going to cost less. And these are some of the pains that you have to go through on a macro point of view. But I do think that the scrap prices are going to continue to be strong. And we'll look to see what we have going on. Any questions to answer? Got a couple? Let's do it.
Just have a quick comment from Ed.
Ed, sell it all. Sell it all, Ed. I agree with you. My warehouse is being emptied every day. Next question. Gold and silver junkie. Hey, gold and silver is going up. Why won't nickel and copper and aluminum go up? So in my opinion, great question. Gold and silver are being positioned as hedges against either A, inflation, B, the stock market cooling off. We've seen stock prices having a really big pullback on all the different NASDAQ, Dow, and other components. So gold and silver have had more money pushed into them. So when I look at them, I just don't think that, it's comparable. Those are precious metals that people are kind of parking money in for the time being, opposed to aluminum, copper, brasses, your ABCs. Those are more of your day-to-day consumption items on a larger weight scale and a larger dollar scale, right? So it hits a little differently, but that's a great question. Hopefully that kind of gave you a little insight there. Anything else?
Yep.
Another one? Great. LV Malls plays. Hey, Tom, I have several pounds of brass ends, male and female, from 1/4-inch headset plug ends. I have someone who gives me old headsets. How should I sell these? I have no steel plug ends. Clean brass. They should go as a clean brass as long as there's no plastic on there. You're welcome to send us a picture to look at it, but if they're just your regular plug ends and they're brass with no contaminants, a clean yellow brass price should be good. And I believe that national average is around $2.15 right now. So make sure you check out some of the prices before you go out there and get them. Let's talk about other markets right now and other things that we've read. Aluminum has had really strong prices, down slightly week over week. really kind of a break-even number. But we're seeing sheet aluminum prices reported 55 cents, 60 cents, 62 cents. We saw a bit of a pullback, but we are seeing some really strong numbers right now. So those aluminum scrap prices are definitely numbers that you should look at cashing in. You can see up here 55 cents, 58 cents, 67 cents, 60 cents, 45. Really nice number, almost an 8% increase in the last month and a half. So check those prices out. You can use these numbers to help negotiate. In my opinion, 500 pounds or more. Less than that, it's not really a negotiating number, but you should be able to ask for at least a nickel a pound on some of your aluminum scrap. And hopefully that will help some things out too. Any other questions before I keep going? No? So let's talk about catalytic converter scrap. Week over week, the team over at RRCats follows these market trends. And similar to the question that we had a few minutes ago about the silver and gold, platinum, you would think, would also be a bit of a safe haven for some people to park money. Unfortunately, platinum, palladium, and rhodium have not been those precious metals where people have been parking money into. So we haven't seen any big increases on catalytic converter prices. If you look at the catalytic converter markets, they're really flat now for almost a year. But there are positives that we've learned in the last few months. O2 sensors and spark plugs, for instance, there are really good values on these. O2 sensors are things that people normally leave on the catalytic converters. That's something we recommend pulling out and selling to us separately. And there's spark plugs that have iridium tips on them. They're kind of cone-shaped tips. The flat tips are copper ones. So the cone ones also have value. So spark plugs and O2 sensors now can get added into that catalytic converter area. That just gives you one more way to make money on your scrap. But we haven't seen the pricing going up. We've seen an average price of cats right around $75 to $80 per OEM on average. So those markets are there right now. I don't see any huge sign of increased life right now, but it is what it is. Now, talked about aluminum. We talked about brasses, through the copper a little bit. Let's talk about steel prices. After seeing about 6 or 7 weeks of steel prices increasing, we've now seen 3 consecutive weeks of steel prices decreasing. Why did this happen? In January, when the Trump administration came in, immediately started doing some executive orders. A lot of people thought that we're going to start to see these steel and aluminum tariffs really kicking in. So they thought, hey, let's get some pricing in there. Some people started to sell domestically here in the United States as some tariffs started to go into effect. Now we started to see some material going out of the country. But what we're really starting to see is there was so much shipped to some of these mills inside of the United States, they couldn't handle all the volume. And that's why we're starting to see pricing drop. And you can see on the board here, light iron 150 a ton, 154 is the national average. And the last month, we're starting to see that 5% decrease. So sure, there are some prices on here, 85, 8 cents is like 170 a ton, 230 a ton, 150. But I do expect going into the summer to see steel prices potentially returning to the levels they were at the end of 2024. So we've seen about a $20 to $30 drop after a $50 rise. So 50 up, 30 down. We're still up slightly, but I do think that the run room is shrinking, especially after the tariff announcements this afternoon in the Rose Garden. I do expect the steel markets to contract even more. So if you are holding on, please stop doing so and sell it as quickly as you can. Any other questions, Virginia? So a couple things that we've touched on in the past that we want to be able to bring up today. This talks about the energy crisis in Europe and how that's going to start to produce some more higher grade alloys. So this is from oilprice.net. Europe scrambles to save its metal industry amid energy crisis and tariffs. 47 projects have been approved to increase European access to nickel, lithium, cobalt, manganese, and graphite. Now, these are metals that you may not scrap on an everyday thing, but graphite is inside of chips. Lithium is inside of batteries. And as the team at iScrap explores more of the recycling process, both for lithium batteries and other electronic scraps, we want to learn about these markets because these specialized metals, they go into many of these batteries and other items, and we want to see how the downstreams are. As Rockway Recycling is an R2 certified vendor with multiple ISO certifications, we want to see how these things flow downstream. That's going to give us the ability to know where the recycling processes are. And that's one of the things that we are working on today, to teach you more about the process of lithium recycling, because there is a market and it is a positive value, but it may take a little while for people to go and get some pricing on that. And that's one of the things that we're working on right now. Any other questions? We have a question? Great. Tim Wilk, what about carbide? Tim, great question. Carbide week over week, sponsored by RRCarbide.com. We've seen markets level off, which is great. So we've seen some carbide prices. Our lower range has been around $7.90. We've seen some people getting quoted over $9 per pound for carbide right now. If you're looking to learn more about these markets, there isn't a carbide price or a tungsten price online. And I've talked to multiple carbide buyers in the last 3 months. I've had three either introductory phone calls or exploratory phone calls with existing vendors. And a lot of them told me the same thing. Tungsten is not a metal that gets traded like copper or steel or aluminum. It's more of a supply and demand. And a lot of the tungsten recyclers are taking tungsten and they're grinding it themselves to sell it as new products. So if they see their demand dipping down, they pay less for their carbide scrap. So what's nice is we've seen a stabilization of the markets for the last 3 or 4 months, which means that manufacturing has been stable, demand has been stable. I think I saw maybe a 10-cent per pound drop off. To me, that's 1% or less, and that's a bit of a rounding error when it comes to reporting on it. But carbide and tungsten prices are strong, so continue to look at them. Any questions? RRCarbide.com has those information pieces on there, as well as how to get free shipping packages to ship them in. Tim, thank you so much for the question. If you do have any other scrap prices, please let me know now before we finish up this live feed. But if you don't get those questions in, don't worry, we'll answer those questions a week prior. Any questions before we start to wrap things up?
We just have a couple questions from last week that
Great.
we're going to answer.
Sure. Questions from last week. Are these price increases simply a seasonal trend? As winter winds down, scrap prices typically increase? No. So yes, generally rule of thumb is when the winter is winding down and scrap markets are opening back up to the spring, yes, we do start to see prices increasing. But what we've learned over the last few years, as traders have had a thirst for more knowledge and a thirst for more things to trade, they started trading metals contracts, which has really thrown off some of the copper prices, unfortunately. So that kind of stinks. So, that's one of the things that we do look at as a negative. But normally you do see an uptick in the spring. Traditionally, there was a real nice pattern, but that's been thrown out since traders have gotten involved. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Next question. How do widening mill prices affect scrap prices? Well, just like widening copper prices. Let's say I used to sell copper 20 cents under COMEX, and COMEX traded at $1. I could sell bare bread at 80 cents a pound. Well, now that went from 20 cents to 50 cents. So now I can sell it at 50 cents a pound. So as the market has gone up incrementally, the spreads have widened because the demand hasn't been there. So the US-based COMEX copper pricing has not become as reliable because the tariffs have not been baked into that fully when you compare them to the London Metal Exchange, which better represents the world market. So, widening mill prices are going to affect copper and steel because if they see two different numbers, they have to go off of the one that's more secure. Next question. Where are the prices for spark plugs? I don't see them on the app. Thanks. If you go over to RRCats.com. Our team there has pricing on spark plugs and O2 sensors. What we found is very few people report pricing on spark plugs or O2 sensors because I don't know any other yards that even buy them outside of Rockaway Recycling currently. So you can go to RRCats.com, click on our miscellaneous metals, and you'll be able to see the spark plug price there at the bottom. Currently at $1.50 a pound for iridium tipped spark plugs. And we'll send you a free bucket and free shipping so you can collect them and bring them in. Next question. Silver plated brass and are they a premium over scrap brass? Yes and no. If you have enough silver plated, they should be a 10 to 15 cents premium. If you have one or two pieces, your scrapyard probably doesn't save it. They're throwing it into their yellow brass. At Rockaway Recycling, we actually have a silver-plated brass box. Unless customers come in with more than 50 pounds, they generally don't get the upgrade because it's one or two pieces mixed in. So then our team has to separate them. But Peter, if you do have enough, Peter's been sending us scrap for years at Rockaway Recycling. If you do have enough silver-plated items, 50 pounds or more, you will get a 10 to 15 cent premium. Virginia, any other questions? Are we good for the day? Scrappers, I'm really looking forward to next week's report. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad based on this afternoon's dialogue in the Rose Garden, but it will be interesting, that's for sure. Any other questions, let us know. If you're not a premium member, please become one. You get early access to our YouTube videos that we create with videos coming out every single week, giving you more information on scrap. So let us know any other questions you have. We'll be live again next week, 1 p.m. Eastern. My name is Tom from the iScrap app, and until next week, I'll scrap you later.